Hey everybody, welcome to Uproot, the podcast, a space that has been created for us to have a holistic conversation around our health and our wellness. We are going to be talking from three different angles: psychology, biology, and theology. The study of the mind, study of the body, and the study of the Bible. I'm your host, Eric Daniel. Thank you so much for joining me here on Uproot, the podcast today. Y'all, I have to give it to you. Y'all really showed up for me. You really showed up for me for my very first episode. And so I have to give it up to you. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for subscribing. Thank you everybody that really supported me on this thing. Like I said in that first video, it was a journey getting to even that first video, but to see the love and support that y'all gave me on that first video, it is truly appreciated. So thank y'all so much. I really, really appreciate you. I really appreciate you. Every single one of you that shared, every single one of you that messaged me, texted me, called me, commented, and just told me how much you were encouraged and how you feel about the podcast. Thank y'all. That really does a lot for me. Because let me tell you, the day that I put out that flyer and said that this podcast was coming, I literally was sick the rest of the day. I was super nervous. I was like, oh man, what did I get myself into? What did I do? Why did I do this? And just to see the way that y'all supported me really helped to confirm what I'm doing. So thank you. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. All right. So for today's episode, I want to get into a little bit about my own mental health journey. I had mentioned in the last episode about my education, right? I talked about being a therapist, going to school for that, being a holistic health coach, going to Bible college, all that stuff. I talked about that. And so for this episode, I really want to just take a little bit of time to talk about my own journey. There was a moment in my life where literally all of those three areas were affected in a negative way. My physical health was poor, my mental health was poor, and my spiritual health was poor. It was all poor. It was all bad. And so I wanna take y'all a little bit on this journey with me as I share with you my progress, where I've gone and where I've come from as it relates to my mental health journey. I do want to say this, y'all, that I'm not finished with it. As I go through and tell y'all this story, understand that it's a daily thing for me, and I'm not finished just because I've gotten on this side of it. It's a journey. It's a journey. So to start off the story, I want to start with my love for track and field, because that's really where that's what it all centers around. I started running track and field when I was in 7th grade. My brothers and sisters ran track. They were good at track. And track was like the family sport. We all ran track. All of us did some form of it. And so 7th and 8th grade, I'm just going to say it, I wasn't that good. I wasn't that good. Even in 9th grade, I was not that good. Ran modified. So let me say this too, because I don't want y'all coming for me. So I ran track 7th and 8th grade, and I did hurdles, right? And so for those of you that don't know, the height of the hurdle increases depending on the level that you're in. So I ran in 7th and 8th grade, I was at the lowest height of hurdles. And so from 8th grade to 9th grade, the hurdles got a little higher, okay? The hurdles got a little higher. Now, with that, I was a short kid. I didn't really realize it at the time, but I was a short kid. I was shorter than my sisters. I have a twin sister, and then I have a sister who's 1 year older than me, and I was shorter than them in 9th grade. And so Going into track, running, getting into my freshman year of track, I was little. I was tiny. And I remember one of the first outdoor track meets that I ran. I'm smiling because I'm thinking about my friend, my childhood friend that she picks on me. She actually she said something about it a couple weeks ago. Where the first outdoor track meet, I was running in not the high hurdles, but I was running in hurdles as a ninth grader. And I hit every single hurdle on the track in the 110s. And I know I fell a few times. I fell a few times. And they laughed at me. Like, they literally, I look up and I just see everybody like laughing at me. I mean, it was funny. It's funny thinking about it now. Back then, though, I wasn't laughing. I didn't think it was funny. It wasn't nothing funny about that. But I can laugh about it now. So yeah, that's how it started. Now, let me tell you, after that, though, after my freshman year, I was determined. I was like, I ain't falling over no more hurdles. I am not getting embarrassed like I did at that track meet. I dedicated my summers to training. Like, I was at the track almost every single day. I was hitting the gym, doing workouts, because I was like, I'm not going to repeat last year. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So my hard work over the summer paid off. It really did. I went from getting last place at our track meets and our sectionals to winning sectionals my sophomore year. Yes, sophomore year. Winning sectionals my sophomore year and making it to state my sophomore year. Yeah, like the hard work paid off. And so as I started to see how much I was able to advance because of my hard work, my love for track grew that much more. I knew that as long as I worked hard and I put in the hard work, I was going to be successful in track and field. And successful I was. Like I said, my sophomore year, I ran at state, won our sectional won sectionals. And then junior year, same thing, won sectionals, won the state qualifiers, went to state, and I believe I got second at state. My senior year, won sectionals, won the state qualifiers, got second place at state again because I had ran another race that day, and I ended up getting tripped and stepped on with spikes and cut my leg open. Ended up running my hurdle race with some butterfly stitches on my leg. Like, it was bad, but we ain't gonna stay there for too long. So after my senior year, after my senior year, I applied to go to college. Now, let me tell you something. College was the last thing on my list. I was not planning on going to college at all, but I knew I wanted to keep running track. So it was a true miracle. I'm telling you it was, because I applied super late, ended up getting in, and started running track at a school at Fredonia in New York. So freshman year was an amazing year for me running track. Let me tell you something. Track was so, and I'm talking about this in this way because when you understand how much track meant to me, you're going to understand why it was so impactful, why the event was so impactful to me. So when it came to track, when it came to being an athlete, whenever anybody would ask me, so Eric, tell me about yourself. Tell me something about yourself. The very first thing that I would say is, I'm an athlete. I run track. I run the hurdles. I pole vault. I do 200. I do a little triple jump in there. Do 100. I sprint. Like, anything that had to do with track and field, it was me. That's how I would acknowledge and identify myself as an athlete. That, to me, to the core, that's who I was, right? So I want to fast forward this a little bit because I don't want to spend too much time talking about track. I want to get in my feelings. I'm just kidding. But I want to get to the event that took place. So going on, it's almost 10 years ago. We're at 9 right now. January 2015, I was scheduled to get my wisdom teeth taken out. My dad drove me to my appointment, and I remember laying down in the chair at the dentist to get my teeth out, and they were putting me under. So I remember the doctor saying, "All right, Eric, so go ahead and count backwards from 10, and you're gonna fall asleep." And me, me being the person that I am, y'all, I'm telling you, I'm so churchy. I said, "Doc, can I pray?" He was like, "Oh yeah, go ahead, pray." And so I started praying. I said, "Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done." And I was gone. I was out. I was completely out. Now, here's when things get a little hectic. I remember waking up and being in a hospital bed with mitts on my hands, feeling something pinching my lip, and I couldn't talk. Now, before officially waking up, I felt like I kept having dreams of people standing over me and talking. I remember one time, like, I heard the doctor say something like, "We got to keep him still. We can't, like, he can't move at all. We got to keep him still." But I'm thinking this is a dream. And so, like, I would open up my eyes and I would be stuck in this place. I couldn't move, couldn't talk, and I would just hear people talking over me. But then I would go back to sleep, right? Then that I think that happened maybe two times before this official time where I woke up and realized that I was actually in the hospital. I didn't know why I was in the hospital, but I realized that I'm in the hospital. And I remember opening my eyes and looking straight and seeing my mom. And so I tried to call her name and realized like there was something in my mouth. And so like I'm like trying to take these mitts off because I reached for my mouth and realized I couldn't because I had the mitts on. So I was like, I remember taking the mitts off and pulling out whatever was in my mouth. Didn't realize that that was placed there to help me breathe. So I pull it out and I say, my voice is gone. And I say, "Mom." And she looks and she starts walking toward me. And I'm like, "Mom," I'm trying to say, "Mom, like, what's going on? What happened? Mom, what happened?" And she said, "Baby, just calm down, but you were in a car accident." And I'm trying to talk and trying to talk. My voice is super raspy. And the doctor says, "Don't say anything," like looking at me saying, "Don't talk, don't say anything." So what happened was when I pulled that thing out, the doctor said that I could have really ruptured or tore my vocal cords because of that tube being in my mouth, and I pulled it out not the correct way at all. I just pulled it out because I wanted my mom, so I was trying to call her. So I pulled that out. So the doctor said, "Don't talk, try not to say anything. We just got to make sure everything's okay in there." And I remember them telling me to open my mouth, and they were checking just to make sure that things were good. So things were good. They said, "Okay, you're okay. Just be careful with talking. Try not to overexert yourself because pulling that out was very dangerous." So they told me to just be very careful. And I remember speaking with a whisper for a while. Um, and then I remember my mom telling me like, "You were in an accident. Your dad was in an accident." And I'm trying to figure out, where is he? Is he okay? And my mom's letting me know he's in the same hospital as me, and he's okay. And so then I remember going back to sleep. And I remember waking up again. And so what I'm believing is like the medicine that they put me under, because I was in a medical induced coma for 3 days. And I believe in like as that medicine was wearing off, like I was able to come in and out and remember more. And so I remember the next time I woke up, I remember seeing friends and family like surrounding me and praying for me, and seeing like cousins. Oh my goodness, and seeing my youth pastor there, like seeing all these people around me, like praying for me, and crying together and crying with me and all that. And so I remember that. The next thing that I remember is being wheeled to a room. I believe I was being transported to, my recovery room. So I remember being there and waking up, and like, oh man, every time I woke up, my mom was right there. Every single time. Every single time I woke up, she was right there. Thank you, mama. So I remember that. I remember getting to the room. I remember while I'm there, people are coming in and out to visit me, asking me how I'm doing, and I remember, I remember a couple people came in, was talking to me, and I fell asleep while they were talking, and my body was going through a lot trying to recover there. Uh, yeah, so I remember that. The next thing that happened that I can remember that was truly impactful was when my track coach came. And I don't think he realizes the impact that this moment had on me. Not to any fault of his, but I remember him saying, we were talking. I remember him saying like, "Hey, your track career is over. Your track career is over." So the extent of the injuries that I had, I received was my back was broken in 3 places, and my large intestine was ruptured. So let me paint this picture of the kind of athlete that I was. So I mentioned to you all that I did hurdles and pole vault and all that. I was training to be a decathlete. A decathlete does 10 different events in 2 days, and so that's very taxing on the body. There's that. Hurdles and pole vault, very technical events, very taxing on the body as they are. Being a pole vaulter, you're going up in the air and then you're falling back down on a mat. Like I said, I broke my back in 3 places. There was absolutely no way that the school was going to permit for me to go back and compete at that level. But I was under the impression, or I was stubborn maybe. I wasn't taking no for an answer. I was determined that I was going to get out of that hospital, go through physical therapy, and return to the team, regardless of what my coach said, regardless of what anyone said. Because I love track that much. If I couldn't run track, what else was I gonna be doing? So I remember being in the hospital. That happened. I was in the bed, like I said, in a coma for 3 days. I was in the hospital for about a week. I remember the doctor saying, you can't go home until you're able to walk from your room to the nurse's station. I'm not sure if you guys know. So with the body, right, you have your spine, and within your spine and your vertebrae is your spinal cord, and so that's where all your nerves and stuff are. So I remember the doctor saying for a little bit, like, you have to sit still, you have to stay still, you can't get up and move yet, because if you shift too much the wrong way, then you could be paralyzed. So um, I didn't I didn't move. I didn't move. But once they gave me the clear to move, he was saying, "All right, you got to walk. We got to make sure you can get the strength back in your legs. Make sure that you can move." So I ended up doing it a couple times. I wasn't able to make it, and then eventually I was. I remember having, like I said, my mama was always there, having her walk with me or support me. Her and the nurse support me as I'm walking back and forth from the nurse's station, gaining the strength back. Right. So I had to be very careful with my talking after this accident. I had to be very careful with my movement, and then I had to be able to walk again. So so this happens, right? After about a week of being in the hospital, I leave the hospital, and I go into physical therapy. Now, like I'm telling you, like I'm working hard at physical therapy. I'm trying to do everything that I can to make sure that I can return to the track, to return to the team. Like I said, I didn't care if somebody said it was over. It wasn't over for me. I was still going. So I was doing physical therapy. I'm working hard in physical therapy. They're telling me like, "Man, we're trying to work a sweat out of you, but you're not seeming to sweat." They didn't realize that I was an athlete. So the minor exercises that they had me doing, my body was used to doing more. So I did that. I had to take the semester off of school, so I worked a little bit, and I went back to my high school and was coaching there for a little bit too. As we got closer to the summer, I attempt to run again. I still have my spikes, still have my workout clothes and stuff, and I attempt to run again. And it just didn't work. Like nothing worked the way it was supposed to. My body was not moving how it usually moved. I tried attempting going over a hurdle and nearly hurt myself even more. My body, what I felt like my body was supposed to do, it was not doing anymore. And the words that my coach said, like, your track career is over, just kept ringing in my head. And I think that it was at that time that I realized, like, yeah, he's right. Not because he didn't believe in me, not because he wanted me to be done. I think reality hit him long before it hit me. The extent of my injuries hit him long before it hit me. And so once it did, man, that put me in a very dark place. Ended up switching my major in college because I said, if I can't be an athlete, I don't want to do anything with athletics. I was going to school for exercise science because I was going to be a physical therapist and an athletic trainer. But like I said to myself, if I'm not competing, I don't want to do anything with it. Ended up switching my major to social work. And part of the reason why is because of conversations that I had with friends about where I was mentally, and I'll get into that a little bit. So I'm in this place where my physical health is not the best. The love of, I'm gonna call it the love of my life, was taken away from me, and I was having this conversation with God, and I said, why did you take this from me? I said, I was telling him how angry I was. I was telling him how upset I was. I said, God, like, I gave this thing to you. I gave this back to you. I was saying like everybody knew me as the Christian on the team, right? Not because I was like throwing Jesus in everybody's face, but I just love God that much that when like I talked about, like, the way I would talk about track to some people is how I would talk about Jesus to some people. Like, I love Jesus that much. So I remember, like, they knew me. I was praying at our track meets. I was praying before and after races. I was bringing my Bible to track practice, like in between workouts or whatever, or in between jumps. And I was waiting, like, I would be reading my Bible. Like, I have my Bible with me all the time. Right. So people knew me as that guy. And they knew me as someone that really loved Jesus. And it was genuine. It wasn't boastful or anything. I just loved Jesus, and folks knew that, right? So I'm saying to God, like, I gave this to you. I gave this gift that you gave me. I gave it back to you, and you let this happen? Like, how could you let this happen? And then my relationship with God would like started to distance a little bit. Like, before, when we was like this, it went started to do this. Not because of God, but because of me, because of where I was in my mind. And so knowing where I was in my mind and how I felt about my relationship with Jesus, I went to some leaders at my church at the time. I went to the leaders, and they were actually leaders that had come up and saw me while I was at the hospital. And one of these leaders, I'm telling them, like, y'all, I'm struggling. I still love God, but I'm angry right now. Like, I'm angry, I'm upset, I'm broken because I don't know life without track. I don't know what to do with my life, with myself, without track. And I'm just explaining and expressing this, and one person says to me, well, Eric, you know that this could only happen because you were not living right with God, right? And I'm thinking to myself, what? Like, that like I said, I was already in a low place. I was already in a broken place. And then to hear that God allowed this to happen because I wasn't living right. This person did not know what my life looked like. He did not know what was going on with me. But he felt that it was necessary for him to say something like that to me. And at this time, I'm young in my faith. I truly gleaned on my leadership to help me grow in my relationship with the Lord, and I'm young in my faith, and so what this did for me is this set me back even more. Not so now I'm dealing with the pain of my physical body. I'm dealing with the suffering of my relationship with God. And now I get into this place of depression because I'm like, well, Jesus don't want me. I can't run track anymore. I'm worthless. I don't know who I am. My self-esteem is to the ground. I don't know who I am. I don't know what to do with myself or with my life. And it gets so bad, y'all. It gets so bad that I start to contemplate suicide. I start to contemplate suicide. There were moments where, so I lived about an hour and a half, hour and 15 minutes from where I went to school. And so on my way from school to my house, and I haven't shared this with anyone, and so Mom, I'm good now. But on my way from school to my house back home, there would be times where I'd be driving on the freeway and I would just feel like steering my car into oncoming traffic, thinking to myself, it'll be quick, it'll be easy, nobody else will have to worry about you. The pain is going to be gone. The physical, emotional, spiritual pain is all going to be gone. You know, you don't have to worry about that anymore. I wanted the pain to be gone, y'all. I was just broken. I was hurt, and everybody knew me as the encourager. Everybody knew me as the one that, like, when everybody else was down, they would call on Eric because Eric would be able to lift somebody else up. And in this time, y'all, I was at the lowest that I could be. Now you might say all that just from track, but when I tell you that was a major part of who I was, and it was just gone. It was gone. So yeah, it got to that point. It got bad. And then on top of that, like I didn't have resources. I didn't get resources for help as it related to my mental health or anything like that. I wish the school would have had some type of mental health support or reached out to me, because if they did have it, I didn't hear about it. Right. So I wish the school would have reached out and said, hey, we know that you ran track. We know that you were in this accident. Just wanted to check in and see how you're doing. Right. I didn't have that. My family was there. There were supports for me, but they did as much as they could, right? Like they didn't connect me, or were not able to connect me to mental health services as well, right? And so I'm in this dark place. I'm struggling. I'm suffering. I have my family around me. They're supporting me as much as they can. I have my friends around me who are supporting me as much as they can. And I was still struggling. And things started to get better when I went back to school and was surrounded by amazing people. Not that my family wasn't amazing, because they were. And like I told you, my mom was there every step of the way. But when I got back to school and was hanging around like my friends, my crew, and they loved on me, they encouraged me, they continued to lift me up, check on me, things started to get better there. And I have to shout them out. I'm going to shout them out. David Asimeng, he is my old roommate from when I was in school, when I was in undergrad. My old roommate, man, he checked on me, called me, texted me, asked me how I was doing, all the things. He was the friend that I needed in that moment. Like, David really, really, like, he was there for me. So I appreciate my brother. I appreciate him so much, because he really was that support that I needed, among so many other friends that I have: DeQuella, Jennifer, Anissa, And then I have Michael, Jesslyn. Like I could name Deja, Emily, Jesse, so many people that I can name that were there as supports for me. And it's because of my natural supports and them encouraging me to keep going is part of why I was able to make it. I will say this too. They helped to rebuild my self-esteem. And I will also say, even though at the time what was spoken to me by the leader really impacted who I was in my relationship with God, I want to say after this, after that, after being around people that encouraged me and spoke into me, I want to say my relationship with God grew so much stronger after that, because now instead of finding my identity in track, I was able to find my identity in Christ. I was able to look to him, and the word, all things work together for the good of those that love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. That word became that much more real to me. It became that much more real to me and that much more alive to me, because now I had to search him. I had to search for him, search his word to figure out, God, how are you going to make this thing work? How are you going to make this thing work? I'm in a dark place. I don't know how to get out of it, but your word says all things work together for the good of those that love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. I said, God, I love you. I love you. So I'm trusting that you're going to make this work. And that he did, right? So my relationship with him grew even stronger. And I will even say that my physical health, even though I still struggled with some of the physical pain, I started to go after a more healthy eating lifestyle. I remember after this accident, I stopped eating red meat for a while. I stopped drinking soda. I stopped having a lot of sweets. And I did this because I knew that because I'm no longer competing or exercising at the level that I used to be, that if I kept eating the way that I used to be eating, it was all going to catch up to me. Right. And so I started to shift the way that I ate things. I started to shift, like I said, wasn't drinking soda, wasn't eating red meat, just poultry and really trying to find different ways to like just live a healthier lifestyle. Right. And I'm grateful that I had these people around me that were able to speak into me and to encourage me so that I didn't stay in that dark spot. Right. Now, let me tell you this. It wasn't always easy, even after getting these people around me, even after changing my lifestyle, and even after changing my eating lifestyle and improving my relationship with the Lord, I still had struggles. There were times where I would drive past a track and would start to cry. There were times where I ended up moving to the area where I went to school. And I remember driving to the track and sitting in the parking lot and just weeping. Because I was still hurting, y'all. I was still broken. Like I said, I was getting better. I was on the journey of getting better. God was revealing things to me. God was showing me the direction that I was going to go in, and getting better. But I still had those struggles. I still wanted to compete. I still wanted to be known as an athlete. I still wanted to do all those things that I could not do. And so I struggled. I still struggled. And it got better. It continued to get better. And now, not so much, y'all. Like, I could ride past the track and be okay. I've been on the track since then too, right? Like, I've improved a lot. But I say all that to say it's a journey. Even after you get the help that you need, even after you sit around with friends and talk to friends about what you're going through, it's a journey. It's a journey. Okay, I'm so appreciative, and I keep saying how appreciative I am for the people around me, but I'm appreciative for the journey. I'm appreciative of going through what I went through because of moments like this right here. I can sit here and encourage somebody else. I can sit here and say, "Hey, I've been where you are. I've struggled where you have, and I want to let you know there's light at the end of the tunnel." I want to do that right now. I want to encourage somebody, right, like in this specific moment right here, I want to speak directly to athletes. I want to speak directly to ex-athletes, people whose career ended before they wanted it to. People whose career ended in the blink of an eye. I want to speak to those people that are still struggling with losing something that you have dedicated your entire life to. You've given up going to birthday parties. You've given up hanging out with friends. You've given up you've sacrificed. Everybody knows that an elite level athlete will sacrifice. And so for those of you that have sacrificed and given up so much and it was taken from you, because it's different, right? And I use that word intentionally, taken, because it's one thing for, excuse me, it's one thing for you to go throughout your career, run your events, go through college, compete, boom, I make it to senior year, I do what I did, and it's all done, and I can hang up my spikes. But to not even be able to get to that point, and one day you are this elite level athlete, you're competing, you're doing all the great things that you love and enjoy doing, and literally the next day, it's gone. Like there's grieving. There's a grieving process that you have to go through there. I didn't know it at the time. I wish I did, but I was grieving. I was going through a grieving process there. And so I want to say to you, grieve the loss of this relationship that you had or you have with this sport. Grieve that. Take the time to grieve that. Talk to somebody about what it is you're thinking, what it is you're feeling. Talk to somebody about that. And I'm going to tell you not to just stay there. You may not have had a plan B. You may not have thought that far ahead. And now you're being forced to choose what you're going to do. I want to encourage y'all. Like I said, this thing is about Jesus. There's no time better than right now to really go deeper in your relationship with the Lord. In a time like this where things are chaotic, in a time like this where you're trying to figure out what's next for you, in a time like this where you don't know what the next move is, lean on God. Lean on God to give you direction. Lean on God to give you understanding of what's going on. Lean on God because He knows the plan that He has for you. He's going to work this thing out for the good for you. Lean on God. I want to encourage you to lean on God and be true about what you're feeling and how you're feeling. Listen, God is not offended by your feelings. God is not offended that you're angry. God is not offended that you're upset. God is not mad at you because you're upset. Be honest with God. The reason I can sit here and say this is because I was there. I was there in that dark place where I was mad at him. I was angry. I was there in that space. And listen, God is not offended by your emotions or your feelings. If we believe that we were created in His image, we have to believe that our emotions and feelings are a part of His image. He's not a human in that He can't hold space for you and hold your offense and hold your anger and hold your frustration. He's a big God. And he's not upset with you because you're upset with Him. And so I want to encourage you to go deeper with God, to ask Him the questions that you have on your heart. And I do want to say this, be mindful with who you are surrounded by. Be mindful of who you're surrounded by, because people will either in your darkest moments and your lowest moments, people are either going to lift you up or they're going to keep you down. Be mindful of who speaks into you at these moments. But I encourage you to get closer to the Lord. Get closer. We can never get to the place where we're close enough. There's always more that we can discover in God, and we can get closer in him. So thank you. Thank you, everybody that listened. Thank you, everybody that is watching. I truly appreciate y'all being in this space with me and allowing me to share my story with you. I really hope that this encouraged somebody. I really hope that this helps somebody else. Share it. Share it to a friend, share it to a relative, share it to a loved one. There might be people who are still grieving because they never allowed themselves to grieve the loss of their athleticism. Share this with somebody, anybody, right? Share this with anybody. I'm appreciative of the journey because I get to do this. I get to encourage others. I get to talk to others who might have gone through something like this themselves. That's what I hope that this podcast does. Thank y'all so much for watching. I am looking forward to next week, to the topics that I'm gonna cover next week. I hope I see y'all back next week. Go ahead and click like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel so you can be notified whenever I post a new episode. Thank y'all so much for joining me on Uproot the podcast. I will see y'all next week.